one of the most important pieces for the diadem is obviously the basic shape, reasonably straight edge, and a good circular finish to it. That's really hard to do with knives and so on. So what I came up with was this idea of using an old food can that, instead of being cut this way, has been cut across here to give us this serrated edge. And what that allows us to do is use this as a kind of cutting device, a sort of cookie cutter type thing. And what we can do is very carefully drill down through this and create ourselves a nice round piece. Now there's a little trick here in just easing this out without slicing the fingers off, and there's our piece. The edges are a little bit rough, we'll need to smooth this off, but that gives us now the main thing we're looking for, which is this nice round shape. Not so much here, but that's fine, that can be the back. And lots of polystyrene balls. Now that we have our piece, we need to think about how to find the centre of it. And the easiest way to do that, I suggest, is to just put your piece down, draw a circle around it. There are ways to find centres of circles, however, as it's probably not that regular, let's just draw around it and then cut that out. That will give us a little template piece like this. And what you should do is just fold it a few times in different directions in order to find the centre, as it were. What we can do is then put that over our piece and just pop the pencil through here, thereby marking the centre of the piece. So if you try to measure this, it will be, in my case, roughly about 70mm, but you'll find you'll keep going round and round and you won't find it. So that's the easiest way. Just mark that up on the centre, like so. Now this is what we're hoping to end up with. So what we need to do is find a way to accurately place each of these lines. And I'm going to use a mix of measurements. I'm going to have to use inches because that's what the main model is in, but millimetres as well, because that's what, of course, our little people come in. So now that we've got our first vertical line through the direct centre of our piece, what we need to do is put this first horizontal line in here. Now what I'm doing on here obviously is just using pencil very, very lightly so as not to too deeply score the piece. Now the way to do this is to measure just 1 inch upwards from the base of the piece, and then to draw the line across at that point. Now if you've got an engineer's rule like this, which is 1 inch thick, that's going to be nice and easy. You can just put that inch line there. Obviously another way is to use one of these, and then you can accurately place the line. So that will give us a fairly good position for this horizontal line here. Now this piece in the middle is meant to be a doorway through which the character could go, so we need to make it appropriately an appropriate size. The bottom of this here is 25mm, and I've made this doorway 40mm. So we need now to put that doorway in here, as it were. The easiest way to put that piece in is to measure across the horizontal line 25mm. So roughly 12.5mm this way, 12.5mm this way, and then put 2 marks here. Measure from the base, not the 40mm that we said, but actually 45mm, and get to this higher point here. Now you'll have your 3 marks on the piece here, and what you'll need to do is then obviously draw in these extra lines, these lines here. And again, if you've got something like a triangle, that's a lot easier to do. It just so happens again, this rule fits pretty tightly. So that puts our door in, through which we think the character could possibly go. The final step then is to put these 2 lines in, and this angle here I kind of chose arbitrarily. What I tried to do was find halfway between these 2 pieces. And so just by line of sight, and also looking at what I thought was a reasonable sized piece, I just drew that line in very roughly. I then took the rule and, keeping level with this line here, drew a point in on the other side, which then told me where I needed to go with this line. Now what we need to do is etch those lines in pen so that we've got a bit of texture and we can see them more clearly. And that's what they look like when we've etched the lines in, which is pretty similar to this. It's good. I've also drawn in an extra line here because I'm going to cut through that. The next thing we need to do is put these lines on the side here. Now we also need to repeat this on the back, but once we've got these lines coming through, we'll be able to just simply copy those across. We have to get these lines fairly straight on the sides. The easiest way, again, is to take whatever you've been measuring with and simply put it against a flat desk. And if you do that, and excuse my arm, match it up with one of the lines you've already drawn, what you'll be able to do, oops, carefully, is draw these lines in, like so. And though the lines themselves may not be, perfectly straight, in relation to the piece, they are. And as I say, what we're doing then is we're creating points on the other side by which we can, redraw this pattern. And the very final step in terms of making the shape is then to cut the door out. And we have our basic diadem. Now, when you cut it with the can, some of the edges may have been a bit rougher than you like, so you can always go over that with some sandpaper or a fine file and just get a cleaner edge like this. So that's our diadem shape, and the next step now is obviously to glue and paint, etc., but to think about what we want on each of these pieces. Now that we've got the diadem ready, we need to think about how we're going to decorate it. And I remembered that in the Warhammer Lizard Army book they give us a lot of glyphs and symbols for the different cities. Now when you look at these diadems, they're meant to kind of tell a story. The idea is that you kind of read around the symbols on the diadem and gain some information from it. So I thought it would be cool if I had the name of the city here and then some kind of message on these four. So what I've decided, if you can decipher this, is that my city is actually going to be called Genental, and around the sides I'm going to have some symbols that say First Lizard Army City. And what I've started to do, I've started to make these symbols, if you can make these out, using green stuff. So that's the symbol for G, for example. I'll take some better photos of these later, but I've essentially gone through and gone, see if I can get that light on there, to try and create the symbols for Genental, and those that apply for First City. I put Lizard Army there, but I'm going to change that. If we go over to the book here, this is the glyphs for each of the, for each of our alphabet that are in the army book, and so we can see somewhere. There's the G, so I'll do a G, an E, and so on, and put those so it says Genental. And each of the first city has this symbol, this sort of mask symbol, so I'll put that as first. I've done a generic one for lizard, and I've used this arrow here as army, so it's the first army lizard city, whereas and I've used this one for the symbol for a city. So I'm going to put those together, those green stuff sigils, and attach them to the diadem as a way of using the kind of Warhammer mythology